Recording. Clip 8.
Very good. So we've looked at now chapters 1 through 3 of Romans. We've looked at the gospel. We've looked at the bad news and the good news. We've looked at the cross and what he's done for us. But we still haven't really talked about this faith and belief. And that's what we're going to look at right now. Paul addresses this in chapter 4 of Romans. And in chapter 4 of Romans, I'm going to basically tell you the story because I'm going to hit the whole thing. I'm not going to read it. You have the lecture in your book or on online, and you can look at it. But I'll just read portions of it. And what he's going to do is he's going to use Abraham as a case study. Now, a case study is like a long example for faith. All right, so he's going to do so, and he's going to do so for a reason. Remember, the reason why Paul is giving the gospel and preaching the gospel is to encourage and to strengthen their faith so that they might be united, so that they might be the church of God to send him to be a missionary in Spain. So he wants them to understand that we're justified or forgiven by faith, not by works, and it is by faith, then stop boasting and condemning one another. So he's going to use Abraham as an example. Excuse me. Now, Abraham is the father of the Jews. And so this is like touching on like George Washington, all right? So he's using a huge example here, and he says, "What shall we say then? That Abraham, our forefather, discovered in this matter? In fact, if Abraham was justified by works, he had something to boast about, but not before God. What do the scriptures say? Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness." Now, the question is, when did this happen? And this requires a little bit of knowledge of the Old Testament. So if you know anything about Abraham, Abraham grew up in a pagan family. He wasn't born Jewish. There was no such thing as Jewish. He was living in Paran, which is a pagan, a non-believing secular world, and he got a call to leave his country, leave his parents, and to follow the voice of God. Now, if he had done works, it would have given him as a salary, but he believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness. Now, the question is, Abraham's faith was credited to him as righteousness, but what circumstances was it credited? Was it after he was circumcised or before? Well, guess what? He believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness before circumcision. And then the other question is, did he do it before or after he received the law? No, he believed God. It was credited to him as righteousness before circumcision and before the law. So did the law save him? No. Did circumcision and outward work save him? No. So what saved him? Faith. So if we look at a timeline, and this is chapter 4, in Genesis 15, he says he believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness. He believed. Then about 40 years later in Genesis 19, he got what? The order to get circumcised. And then this is 40 years, and then about 400 years later, he got the law. And guess what? Who gave him the law? Moses. Abraham was already dead. So why is this important? Is because the father, Abraham, was not justified or made righteous because of outward religion, because of kosher laws, of food laws, or Sabbath laws, or circumcision. It wasn't because of the law, it was because he believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Now, what did he believe? See, God had made a promise. He was so old. He was about 100 years old, and Sarah was super old as well. And you'll see a video on our topics about this, and will help you understand a little bit. But he was too old to have children, all right? And God had promised that he was going to have a child, all right? And therefore, the promise comes by faith. He believed God, and he actually believed that God could do a miracle, that God could bring life from the dead. And against all hope, Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. And so, in verse 18, it says, he became the father of many nations. Just as it has been written to him, so shall your offspring be. Without weakening his face, he faced the fact that his body was as good as dead, since he was about 100 years old, and Sarah's womb was also dead. Yet he did not waver through unbelief regarding the promise of God, but was strengthened in his faith and gave glory to God, being fully persuaded that God had the power to do what he had promised. This is why it was credited to him as righteousness. Now, this last part is super important. It says here, therefore the promise comes by faith. Not only those who are of the law, but those who are of the faith. He is the Father of us all, the Father of the faith. Now, Abraham, can he be the father of those who believed without circumcision? Yeah, because he did. Can he be the father of the circumcision? Yes. So he can be the father of both Jews and Gentiles. Those who believe according to the promise. And this is super important is because I don't know if you know, Miami is kind of a weird place because we don't have much history here because everyone's come from a different part. And this is what he's saying. He's saying, listen, we all come from a different part, but I'm going to unite you even more. I'm going to give you the same past. Jewish people, you share a past with the Gentiles. And Gentile people, you share a past with the Jews because guess what? You share the same Father. And that Father, the father of the faith, the father, the patriarch of the Jewish nation, the Hebrew nation, believed God, and it was credited to him, given to him as righteousness. The righteous will live by faith, not by works. All right, go to your lesson and answer the questions.